Question 1. Regulatory review indicates that a critical user group requires an immediate upgrade to a new virtual desktop experience leveraging VMware Horizon 7 features to enhance productivity. However, the IT team has concerns about the stability and potential security implications of a full, immediate deployment across the entire organization. What is the most prudent approach to manage this transition? Option A. Deploy the new environment to a limited set of users without a formal feedback mechanism, assuming their experience will be representative. Option B. Prioritize the technical performance metrics of the new Horizon 7 environment and deploy it broadly once those metrics are met, irrespective of user feedback or security concerns. Option C. Implement a phased rollout strategy, starting with a pilot group of representative users to gather feedback and identify any issues before a broader deployment. Option D. Proceed with a full, immediate deployment to meet the urgent business need and address any issues that arise post-implementation. The correct answer is C. Implement a phased rollout strategy, starting with a pilot group of representative users to gather feedback and identify any issues before a broader deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT infrastructure management, balancing the need for rapid deployment of new features with the imperative to maintain a stable and secure production environment. The pressure to deliver a new virtual desktop experience to a critical user group quickly, coupled with the potential for user dissatisfaction if delayed, creates a conflict between business agility and operational risk. The core challenge lies in making a decision that prioritizes user experience and business continuity while adhering to established security and operational best practices, which are implicitly governed by the principles of responsible IT deployment, as outlined in general IT governance frameworks relevant to the VMware Professional Horizon 7 Exam 2019 context. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased rollout strategy, beginning with a pilot group of representative users. This aligns with best practices for managing change in complex IT systems. By testing the new Horizon 7 deployment with a limited, controlled audience, potential issues can be identified and resolved before a wider release. This minimizes the risk of widespread disruption, data loss, or security vulnerabilities affecting the entire organization. This approach demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to risk mitigation, which are fundamental to maintaining system integrity and user trust. It allows for iterative refinement based on real-world feedback, ensuring the final deployment meets both technical and user requirements effectively. Incorrect approaches analysis. A full, immediate rollout without prior testing exposes the entire user base to potential instability, performance degradation, or security flaws in the new Horizon 7 environment. This is a direct violation of prudent change management principles and could lead to significant business disruption, reputational damage, and potential compliance issues if data integrity is compromised. Deploying the new environment without any user feedback mechanism, even in a pilot, risks overlooking critical usability or performance issues that only end users can identify. This can lead to a suboptimal user experience and may necessitate costly and disruptive post-deployment fixes. It fails to leverage user input for continuous improvement. Focusing solely on technical performance metrics without considering the user experience or potential security implications of the new features is an incomplete approach. While performance is important, a successful deployment must also be secure and usable. Neglecting these aspects can lead to user frustration, security breaches, and ultimately, a failed initiative. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that prioritizes risk assessment and phased implementation for significant infrastructure changes. This involves 1. Understanding the business drivers and user impact. 2. Conducting a thorough risk assessment of the proposed changes. 3. Developing a phased rollout plan that includes pilot testing and feedback loops. 4. Establishing clear success criteria and rollback procedures. 5. Communicating effectively with stakeholders throughout the process. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, risks are managed, and the ultimate goal of delivering a stable, secure, and effective solution is achieved. Question 2. Investigation of a user reporting intermittent connectivity issues with their assigned Horizon 7 virtual desktop, stating they cannot access critical business applications. The user has confirmed their network connection is stable and their credentials are correct. The IT support team needs to determine the most appropriate next step to resolve this issue while adhering to established security and operational guidelines. Option A. Immediately re-provision a new virtual desktop for the user and migrate their profile. Option B. Verify the user's identity and access rights, check the Horizon connection server and agent status, and review relevant event logs for errors or anomalies. Option C. Grant the user temporary administrative privileges on their current desktop to bypass potential application access restrictions. Option D. Advise the user to wait and try accessing their desktop again later, as the issue might resolve itself. Correct answer is A. Immediately re-provision a new virtual desktop for the user and migrate their profile. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in virtual desktop infrastructure management, ensuring consistent and secure user access while dealing with unexpected environmental changes. The core difficulty lies in balancing rapid response to user-reported issues with the need for thorough, compliant troubleshooting. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to hasty decisions that might bypass established security protocols or regulatory requirements, making careful judgment paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation that prioritizes understanding the root cause within the defined operational and security framework. This includes verifying the user's identity and access rights, checking the Horizon environment's health status, and reviewing relevant logs for anomalies. This methodical process ensures that any remediation steps are targeted, effective, and do not introduce new security vulnerabilities or violate compliance mandates. Adhering to documented procedures and security best practices, as expected in a professional VMware environment, is crucial for maintaining system integrity and auditability. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately re-provisioning the user's desktop without a proper investigation. This bypasses the opportunity to identify and fix the underlying issue, potentially leading to recurring problems. Ethically and professionally, this is a failure to perform due diligence. From a regulatory perspective, it could violate data handling policies if sensitive information is involved, as the cause of the initial issue remains unknown and unaddressed. Another incorrect approach is to grant the user elevated privileges to bypass the issue temporarily. This is a significant security risk and a direct violation of the principle of least privilege, a fundamental security and compliance tenet. It exposes the environment to potential unauthorized access or data breaches, which would have severe regulatory and ethical consequences. A third incorrect approach is to simply advise the user to try again later without any investigation. This demonstrates a lack of accountability and professional responsibility. It fails to address the user's immediate need and neglects the potential for a systemic problem that could affect other users, leading to a breakdown in service delivery and potential noncompliance with service-level agreements or operational mandates. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such issues by first establishing a clear understanding of the problem through data gathering and verification. This involves consulting documentation, checking system health, and reviewing logs. Next, they should identify potential causes based on this information, prioritizing those that align with known issues or common failure points. Then, they should evaluate potential solutions, considering their impact on security, compliance, and user experience. Finally, they should implement the chosen solution, document the process and outcome, and monitor for recurrence. This structured approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with professional standards and regulatory requirements. Question 3. What factors determine the appropriate configuration and management of VMware Horizon 7? 7 components to ensure adherence to U.S. federal and state data privacy and security regulations. Option A. The availability of the latest VMware Horizon 7. 7 patches and security advisories, irrespective of specific regulatory mandates. Option B. The cost-effectiveness of various Horizon configuration options, with regulatory compliance being a secondary consideration after budget constraints. Option C. The perceived technical complexity of implementing certain Horizon features, prioritizing ease of deployment over strict regulatory alignment. Option D. The specific U.S. federal and state data privacy and security regulations applicable to the organization's industry and data types, coupled with a documented risk assessment and a defined compliance control framework. The correct answer is D. the specific U.S. federal and state data privacy and security regulations applicable to the organization's industry and data types, coupled with a documented risk assessment and a defined compliance control framework. Explanation: the scenario presents a professional challenge in ensuring regulatory compliance within a VMware Horizon 7 environment. The core difficulty lies in the dynamic nature of regulatory frameworks and the need for continuous vigilance to maintain adherence. Organizations must balance operational efficiency with the stringent requirements of data privacy and security regulations, which can be complex and subject to interpretation. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement controls that effectively mitigate risks without unduly hindering user productivity or system performance. The correct approach, which involves a proactive and documented process for identifying, assessing, and implementing controls aligned with relevant regulatory requirements, represents best professional practice. This is because it demonstrates a commitment to due diligence and a structured methodology for managing compliance. Specifically, for a VMware Horizon 7 environment, this would involve understanding regulations like GDPR, if applicable to the jurisdiction of the exam, which is assumed to be US-based for this context, unless otherwise specified, and thus focusing on US federal and state data privacy laws like HIPAA for healthcare or CCPA for California consumers, and mapping Horizon's features and configurations to specific compliance mandates. Documenting these mappings and the implemented controls provides an auditable trail, essential for demonstrating compliance to regulatory bodies. This approach fosters a culture of compliance and reduces the likelihood of penalties or reputational damage. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on technical implementation without considering the underlying regulatory intent fails to meet compliance obligations. For instance, simply enabling encryption without understanding the specific data types or regulatory mandates for key management would be insufficient. This approach risks overlooking critical aspects of data protection required by law, leading to potential breaches and regulatory sanctions. Another incorrect approach, which relies on ad hoc compliance checks without a defined process, is also professionally unacceptable. This reactive stance makes it difficult to consistently identify and address compliance gaps, increasing the organization's vulnerability to non-compliance. It suggests a lack of strategic planning and commitment to regulatory adherence. Finally, an approach that prioritizes cost savings over compliance requirements, such as neglecting necessary security controls due to budget constraints, directly violates the ethical and legal obligations to protect sensitive data. This can lead to severe financial penalties and loss of trust. Professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, clearly identify all applicable regulatory frameworks. Second, conduct a thorough risk assessment to understand how these regulations apply to the specific VMware Horizon 7 deployment and the data it handles. Third, design and implement technical and procedural controls that directly address identified risks and regulatory requirements. Fourth, establish ongoing monitoring and auditing processes to ensure controls remain effective and to detect any deviations. Finally, maintain comprehensive documentation of all compliance activities, including policies, procedures, and audit results, for accountability and reporting. Question 4. When evaluating the implementation of VMware Horizon 7 for a healthcare organization that handles protected health information, which approach best ensures compliance with data privacy regulations by minimizing the risk of unauthorized access to sensitive patient data within virtual desktops? Option A. Deploying broad network segmentation for all virtual desktop infrastructure, VDI, to isolate the environment from other internal networks, assuming this inherently protects PHI. Option B. Implementing granular role-based access controls RBAC within Horizon 7 to restrict user access to specific applications and data sets based on their job function, coupled with comprehensive auditing of all access events. Option C. Granting all IT administrators full administrative privileges to all virtual desktops and applications to facilitate rapid troubleshooting and maintenance, without specific time-bound restrictions or detailed logging. Option D. Utilizing default Horizon 7 security settings without customization, relying on the vendor's baseline configurations to meet regulatory requirements. The correct answer is B. Implementing granular role-based access controls, RBAC, within Horizon 7. 7 to restrict user access to specific applications and data sets based on their job function, coupled with comprehensive auditing of all access events. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in IT environments, balancing the need for efficient resource allocation with the imperative of regulatory compliance, specifically concerning data privacy and access controls within a VMware Horizon 7. 7 deployment. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the relevant regulatory framework to a technical implementation, ensuring that security measures align with legal and ethical obligations without hindering operational effectiveness. Careful judgment is required to avoid overimplementation that impacts user experience or underimplementation that creates compliance risks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core tenets of data protection regulations by implementing granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege. This ensures that only authorized personnel can access sensitive data, thereby minimizing the risk of unauthorized disclosure or modification. This aligns with the spirit and letter of data privacy laws that mandate appropriate technical and organizational measures to protect personal data. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on network segmentation without considering user-level permissions fails to meet regulatory requirements. Network segmentation is a valuable security layer, but it does not inherently restrict access to specific data within a virtual desktop or application for authorized users. This could lead to a situation where a user has network access, but is not permitted to view or interact with certain sensitive information, creating a compliance gap. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes broad administrative access for troubleshooting purposes, without a clear audit trail or time-bound authorization, poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. This practice can lead to inadvertent data breaches, misuse of privileged access, and difficulty in demonstrating compliance during an audit. Regulations often require strict controls over administrative access and comprehensive logging to ensure accountability. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory framework, a detailed assessment of the data being processed and its sensitivity, and a risk-based approach to implementing security controls. This includes defining clear roles and responsibilities, implementing the principle of least privilege at all levels, network, system, and application, establishing robust auditing and monitoring mechanisms, and regularly reviewing and updating security policies and procedures to ensure ongoing compliance. Question 5. The monitoring system demonstrates the capability to capture detailed user session data, including keystrokes and screen content, alongside standard performance metrics and error logs. Given the need to maintain a secure and auditable virtual desktop environment, which of the following approaches best balances operational requirements with regulatory compliance and user privacy? Option A. Enable comprehensive session recording, including keystrokes and screen captures, for all users to ensure maximum auditability and security. Option B. Disable all user activity monitoring to eliminate any potential privacy concerns and avoid regulatory scrutiny. Option C. Utilize the default monitoring configuration provided by the VMware Horizon 7. 7 software without further customization or review against specific organizational policies. Option D. Implement monitoring focused on session metadata, resource utilization, and error logs, with clear documentation of policies and user notification regarding the scope of monitoring. The correct answer is D. Implement monitoring focused on session metadata, resource utilization, and error logs, with clear documentation of policies and user notification regarding the scope of monitoring. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in virtual desktop infrastructure management, balancing the need for comprehensive monitoring with the potential for privacy concerns and regulatory compliance. The monitoring system's ability to capture detailed user activity, while beneficial for troubleshooting and security, can inadvertently cross lines if not properly configured and governed. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that monitoring practices align with the specific regulatory framework governing data privacy and user rights within the context of the VMware Horizon 7. 7 environment, without compromising the operational integrity or security of the system. The critical judgment required is to identify monitoring actions that are both effective and compliant. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing monitoring that is strictly limited to what is necessary for legitimate operational and security purposes, with clear documentation and user notification. This aligns with principles of data minimization and transparency, which are foundational in many regulatory frameworks concerning data privacy. Specifically, focusing on session metadata, resource utilization, and error logs, rather than direct content capture, adheres to the principle of least privilege for monitoring. Documenting these policies and informing users about the nature and extent of monitoring are crucial for ethical and regulatory compliance, preventing unauthorized access or misuse of sensitive information. This approach ensures that the monitoring system serves its intended purpose without infringing on user privacy rights or violating data protection regulations. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves enabling comprehensive session recording, including keystrokes and screen captures, without explicit user consent or a clearly defined, documented policy justifying such extensive monitoring. This directly violates principles of data privacy and user consent, potentially contravening regulations that mandate transparency and restrict the collection of personal data. Such broad monitoring can lead to the capture of sensitive personal information, creating significant legal and ethical liabilities. Another incorrect approach is to disable all user activity monitoring to avoid any potential privacy issues. While seemingly cautious, this can lead to significant operational and security risks. Without adequate monitoring, it becomes difficult to detect and respond to security threats, troubleshoot performance issues, or ensure compliance with internal policies. This failure to implement necessary controls can be seen as a dereliction of duty in maintaining a secure and functional virtual environment, potentially violating regulatory requirements for system security and auditability. A third incorrect approach is to rely on a generic, unverified monitoring configuration provided by the vendor, without a thorough review against the specific regulatory requirements applicable to the organization. This approach assumes that default settings are compliant, which is rarely the case. It fails to account for the unique data privacy laws and organizational policies that must be adhered to, leading to potential noncompliance and security vulnerabilities. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to monitoring. This involves first identifying the specific regulatory requirements applicable to their jurisdiction and industry concerning user data and privacy. Then, they should assess the operational and security needs that necessitate monitoring. Based on this assessment, they should design and implement monitoring strategies that are proportionate to the identified risks and needs, prioritizing the collection of metadata and system-level information over direct content capture. Crucially, all monitoring activities must be clearly documented, with policies communicated to users. Regular audits and reviews of monitoring configurations are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. Question 6. The performance metrics show a consistent, albeit minor, increase in latency across several key Horizon 7 desktop pools, alongside a slight uptick in CPU utilization on the connection servers. While not yet critical, these trends could indicate an emerging security concern or an impending operational issue. Which of the following is the most appropriate initial response to address this situation? Option A. Initiate a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential threats and vulnerabilities contributing to the performance degradation, and develop a phased mitigation plan based on the findings. Option B. Immediately implement stricter access controls and multi-factor authentication for all Horizon 7 users to preemptively address any potential unauthorized access. Option C. Schedule an immediate system-wide patch deployment for all Horizon 7 components and underlying operating systems to address any known vulnerabilities. Option D. Conduct a deep dive into the network infrastructure logs to identify any unusual traffic patterns or bandwidth saturation that might be causing the latency. The correct answer is A. Initiate a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential threats and vulnerabilities contributing to the performance degradation, and develop a phased mitigation plan based on the findings. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT risk management, balancing operational efficiency with security and compliance. The performance metrics, while indicating potential issues, are not definitive proof of a specific threat. A hasty, reactive approach without proper investigation can lead to misallocation of resources, unnecessary disruption, and potentially overlooking the actual root cause. The correct approach involves a systematic risk assessment process, aligning with best practices for IT security and operational management. This process begins with validating the observed metrics and understanding their context. It then moves to identifying potential risks, analyzing their likelihood and impact, and finally, developing appropriate mitigation strategies. This methodical approach ensures that actions taken are proportionate to the identified risks and are supported by evidence, thereby maintaining operational integrity and adhering to any relevant compliance frameworks that mandate a risk-based security posture. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement broad security measures based solely on performance anomalies without a thorough risk assessment. This could involve shutting down services or implementing restrictive policies that are not justified by the actual threat landscape. Such actions could lead to operational downtime, user dissatisfaction, and wasted resources. From a regulatory perspective, a failure to conduct a proper risk assessment before implementing significant security changes could be seen as a breach of due diligence, especially if specific compliance mandates require a documented and justified approach to security controls. For instance, if the organization is subject to regulations requiring a documented risk management framework, a reactive, unassessed response would fail to meet these requirements. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes data-driven analysis and a structured risk assessment methodology. This involves 1. Data validation, confirming the accuracy and context of the performance metrics. 2. Threat identification, brainstorming potential causes for the anomalies, considering both technical and security-related factors. 3. Risk analysis, evaluating the likelihood and potential impact of each identified threat. 4. Mitigation planning, developing and prioritizing controls based on the risk analysis. 5. Implementation and monitoring, deploying controls and continuously monitoring their effectiveness. This iterative process ensures that decisions are informed, justifiable, and aligned with organizational objectives and regulatory obligations. Question 7. The evaluation methodology shows a proposed risk assessment strategy for a VMware Horizon 7 environment. Which of the following strategies best aligns with a comprehensive and effective risk assessment approach? Option A. Assume that insider threats are negligible in a well-managed IT environment and therefore do not require specific risk assessment. Option B. Focus primarily on the total number of active user sessions. The higher number indicates a greater potential attack surface. Option C. Implement all available security patches for Horizon 7 and its underlying components immediately, regardless of specific threat intelligence or impact analysis. Option D. Prioritize risks based on the potential for unauthorized access to sensitive data and the likelihood of successful exploitation of identified vulnerabilities within the Horizon 7 infrastructure. The correct answer is D. Prioritize risks based on the potential for unauthorized access to sensitive data and the likelihood of successful exploitation of identified vulnerabilities within the Horizon 7 infrastructure. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a critical juncture in risk assessment for a VMware Horizon 7 deployment. The professional challenge lies in accurately identifying and prioritizing risks within the specific regulatory framework of the exam's jurisdiction, which is assumed to be a general IT governance context without specific geographical mandates, unless otherwise stated. This scenario demands a nuanced understanding of how potential vulnerabilities translate into actual threats and their impact on business operations and data integrity, all while adhering to best practices in risk management. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically identifies potential threats, analyzes their likelihood and impact, and then proposes mitigation strategies aligned with the organization's risk tolerance. This aligns with standard IT risk assessment frameworks that emphasize a proactive and structured approach to security. By focusing on the potential for unauthorized access and data exfiltration, directly addresses core security concerns relevant to virtual desktop infrastructure. This methodical process ensures that resources are allocated effectively to address the most significant risks first, thereby enhancing the overall security posture of the Horizon environment. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the number of users without considering their access privileges or the sensitivity of the data they access fails to perform a proper risk analysis. This is a regulatory failure because it neglects the principle of least privilege and the need to assess risks based on potential impact, not just user volume. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes patching known vulnerabilities without assessing their exploitability within the specific Horizon 7 configuration and the organization's threat landscape is also flawed. While patching is important, an unprioritized approach can lead to wasted resources and a false sense of security, failing to address the most critical risks. Finally, an approach that dismisses potential insider threats as unlikely without any supporting evidence or analysis is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to consider all plausible risk vectors, which is a cornerstone of responsible risk management. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the assets and data being protected. This is followed by identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, analyzing the likelihood and impact of each risk, and then developing and implementing appropriate mitigation strategies. Regular review and reassessment of the risk landscape are also crucial to maintain an effective security posture. Question 8. System analysis indicates that a VMware Horizon 7 environment is experiencing intermittent performance degradation and an increase in user-reported access issues. To address these concerns and ensure the ongoing security and stability of the virtual desktop infrastructure, what is the most appropriate initial step in the risk management process? Option A. Immediately implement a broad set of security patches across all Horizon 7 components without further analysis. Option B. Deploy additional virtual desktops to alleviate user access complaints. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify and analyze potential threats, vulnerabilities, and their potential impact on the Horizon 7 environment. Option D. Focus solely on network bandwidth utilization as the primary cause of performance issues. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify and analyze potential threats, vulnerabilities, and their potential impact on the Horizon 7 environment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT risk management, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational demands of a dynamic virtual desktop environment. The challenge lies in accurately identifying and prioritizing risks that could impact the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of sensitive user data and the Horizon 7 infrastructure itself. A failure to conduct a thorough and context-aware risk assessment can lead to misallocation of resources, ineffective security measures, and potential compliance violations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive risk assessment process tailored to the specific Horizon 7 deployment. This includes identifying all relevant assets, e.g., virtual desktops, connection servers, UEG data stores, potential threats, e.g., malware, unauthorized access, data exfiltration, service disruption, and vulnerabilities, e.g., unpatched software, weak access controls, misconfigurations. By analyzing the likelihood and impact of these risks, appropriate mitigation strategies can be developed and prioritized. This aligns with best practices in information security and is implicitly supported by general IT governance principles that emphasize proactive risk management to ensure the protection of information assets. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to solely focus on patching vulnerabilities without a broader understanding of the threat landscape and potential impacts. This reactive stance fails to address risks that may not be directly tied to known software vulnerabilities, such as social engineering attacks or insider threats. It also neglects the impact analysis, meaning critical risks might be overlooked. Another incorrect approach would be to implement security controls based on industry best practices without a specific assessment of the Horizon 7 environment. While general best practices are valuable, they may not adequately address the unique risks and configurations of a particular deployment, leading to either overprotection, unnecessary cost and complexity, or underprotection, critical risks remaining unmitigated. A third incorrect approach would be to prioritize risks based solely on the perceived technical complexity of the vulnerability, rather than on the actual business impact and likelihood of exploitation. This can lead to significant resources being spent on mitigating low-impact risks, while high-impact, easily exploitable risks are left unaddressed. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured risk assessment methodology that begins with asset identification, followed by threat and vulnerability analysis, and then risk evaluation, likelihood x impact. This process should be iterative and involve stakeholders from IT operations, security, and business units. The output should be a prioritized list of risks with corresponding mitigation plans, which are then implemented and continuously monitored. This systematic approach ensures that resources are allocated effectively to address the most critical threats to the Horizon 7 environment. Question 9. The assessment process reveals a newly disclosed critical vulnerability in a widely used third-party application that is integrated into the VMware Horizon 7 virtual desktop environment. While there is no current evidence of active exploitation within the organization, the potential impact on data confidentiality and system availability is significant. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action to manage this risk? Option A. Implement a broad network segmentation strategy to isolate all virtual desktops utilizing the vulnerable application without addressing the application itself. Option B. Rely on existing endpoint security solutions to detect and prevent any potential exploitation of the vulnerability. Option C. Initiate an immediate targeted patching process for the affected third-party application on all Horizon virtual desktops and connection servers, following a validated rollback plan. Option D. Document the vulnerability and monitor for any signs of active exploitation before considering any remediation actions. The correct answer is C. Initiate an immediate targeted patching process for the affected third-party application on all Horizon virtual desktops and connection servers, following a validated rollback plan. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a critical juncture in managing the security posture of a VMware Horizon 7 environment. The challenge lies in balancing the need for robust security with the operational realities of a dynamic virtual desktop infrastructure. Specifically, the scenario presents a situation where a newly identified vulnerability in a third-party application commonly used within the Horizon environment has been disclosed. This vulnerability, while not yet actively exploited within the organization, poses a significant risk. The professional challenge is to determine the most appropriate and compliant response to this risk, considering the potential impact on business operations, user experience, and adherence to established security best practices and regulatory expectations relevant to the VMware Professional Horizon 7 Exam 2019 context. The correct approach prioritizes a proactive and layered defense strategy. It involves immediate containment and mitigation actions, followed by a thorough risk assessment and the implementation of a permanent remediation plan. This aligns with the principles of risk management, emphasizing the need to identify, assess, and treat risks in a timely and effective manner. By focusing on understanding the specific impact of the vulnerability within the organization's unique Horizon deployment, and then implementing targeted controls, this approach ensures that resources are allocated efficiently and that the most critical risks are addressed first. This demonstrates a commitment to maintaining a secure and compliant environment, which is paramount in professional IT operations. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the vulnerability due to a lack of immediate exploitation. This represents a failure to adhere to the principle of proactive security and a disregard for potential future threats. It creates an unacceptable level of risk, leaving the environment susceptible to attack. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately deploy a broad, untested patch across all systems without proper validation. This could lead to unintended consequences, such as system instability or application incompatibility, disrupting business operations and potentially introducing new security vulnerabilities. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to conduct a proper risk assessment before implementing changes. A third incorrect approach might be to rely solely on perimeter security measures, assuming that internal threats are not a concern. This overlooks the reality that vulnerabilities can be exploited from within the network, and a comprehensive security strategy requires defense in depth. A professional decision-making process in such situation should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This includes identifying the asset at risk, the Horizon environment and its data, identifying the threat, the vulnerability, assessing the likelihood of exploitation, and determining the potential impact. Based on this assessment, appropriate mitigation strategies should be developed and prioritized. This process should be documented, and decisions should be justifiable based on the risk assessment findings and organizational policies. Continuous monitoring and reassessment are also crucial to adapt to evolving threats and the changing IT landscape. Question 10. Operational review demonstrates that a critical VMware Horizon 7 environment is experiencing intermittent performance degradation, impacting user experience and productivity. The IT team is under pressure to resolve the issue quickly. While investigating, a team member identifies a potential configuration drift in a specific virtual desktop agent setting that could be the cause. However, the standard change management process requires a formal request, risk assessment, and approval before any production changes are made, which would take several hours to complete. What is the most appropriate course of action to address this situation while adhering to best professional practices? Option A. Roll back the entire Horizon environment to a previous known stable state without further investigation to guarantee immediate service restoration. Option B. Immediately implement the suspected configuration change to restore performance, and then submit the change request and documentation retrospectively. Option C. Implement the suspected configuration change as an emergency change, following expedited documented procedures for urgent issues, and then complete the full change documentation and review as soon as possible. Option D. Initiate the formal change management process, including a risk assessment and approval, even if it delays the immediate fix, to ensure all changes are properly documented and authorized. The correct answer is B. Immediately implement the suspected configuration change to restore performance, and then submit the change request and documentation retrospectively. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT operations, balancing the need for immediate issue resolution with the requirement for thorough, documented, and compliant change management. The professional challenge lies in the pressure to restore service quickly, which can tempt individuals to bypass established procedures. This bypass, while seemingly efficient in the short term, carries significant risks, including the introduction of further instability, security vulnerabilities, and non-compliance with organizational policies and potentially regulatory mandates. Though specific regulations are not detailed in the prompt, the principle of auditable and controlled changes is universally applicable in professional environments. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it adheres to the established change management framework. This framework is designed to ensure that all modifications to production systems are assessed for risk, impact, and rollback capabilities before implementation. By following the documented process, even under pressure, the IT professional demonstrates accountability, risk awareness, and a commitment to maintaining system integrity and auditability. This aligns with principles of good governance and operational excellence, ensuring that changes are not only effective, but also traceable and reversible, minimizing long-term disruption and potential compliance breaches. An incorrect approach that involves implementing a fix without proper authorization or documentation fails to meet professional standards. This failure can lead to several regulatory and ethical issues. Firstly, it bypasses the risk assessment and approval process, potentially introducing unforeseen consequences that could impact service availability or data integrity, which could have downstream regulatory implications depending on the data handled by the Horizon environment. Secondly, it creates an undocumented change, making it impossible to accurately audit the system's state or troubleshoot future issues effectively. This lack of transparency and traceability is a direct violation of principles of good IT governance and can hinder compliance audits. Another incorrect approach, such as reverting to a previous known good state without understanding the root cause of the current failure, might temporarily resolve the issue but fails to address the underlying problem, leading to recurring incidents and demonstrating a lack of thorough problem solving, which is a professional failing. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a rapid assessment of the immediate impact of the issue, followed by a swift consultation of the established change management procedures. If the situation is critical and requires immediate action, the process should allow for emergency change procedures, which still involve documentation and post-implementation review, albeit expedited. The key is to never completely abandon the framework, but rather to leverage its flexibility for urgent scenarios while ensuring that all actions are recorded and reviewed. This balanced approach prioritizes both service continuity and operational integrity. Question 11. Quality control measures reveal that a critical business application has a new version available, promising enhanced features and performance improvements for users accessing it via VMware Horizon 7 virtual desktops. The IT operations team is under pressure to deploy this update rapidly to meet business demands. What is the most appropriate approach to ensure a smooth and secure transition for all users? Option A. Roll back the update immediately upon the first user-reported issue without further investigation. Option B. Implement the application update on a subset of virtual desktops during off-peak hours and monitor for immediate issues. Option C. Conduct a pilot deployment of the new application version to a small, representative group of users, gather feedback, and address any issues before a full rollout. Option D. Deploy the new application version to all users simultaneously during a scheduled maintenance window. Correct answer is D. Deploy the new application version to all users simultaneously during a scheduled maintenance window. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing user experience with the security and stability of a virtual desktop infrastructure, VDI. Rapidly deploying new application versions without thorough testing can lead to widespread user disruption, data corruption, or security vulnerabilities, all of which have significant operational and reputational consequences. The pressure to deliver new features quickly must be weighed against the imperative to maintain a reliable and secure environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased rollout and comprehensive testing. This aligns with best practices in IT service management and VDI deployment, which prioritize minimizing risk and ensuring service continuity. By testing in a controlled pilot group, potential issues can be identified and resolved before impacting the broader user base. This proactive approach prevents widespread outages, reduces support overhead, and upholds the organization's commitment to providing a stable and secure VDI environment. This methodology is implicitly supported by general IT governance principles that advocate for risk management and change control. Incorrect approach is analysis. Deploying the new application version to all users simultaneously without any pilot testing is a direct violation of change management best practices. It introduces an unacceptable level of risk, potentially leading to widespread service disruption, data loss, and security breaches. This approach demonstrates a failure to implement adequate risk mitigation strategies. Implementing the application update only during off-peak hours, without prior pilot testing, still carries significant risk. While it attempts to minimize immediate impact, it does not address the potential for unforeseen compatibility issues, performance degradation, or security flaws that could still cause significant problems once users begin interacting with the updated application. It is a partial mitigation, not a comprehensive solution. Rolling back the update immediately after encountering the first reported issue without attempting to diagnose or resolve it indicates a reactive rather than proactive approach. While rollback is a valid contingency, a more professional approach would involve a structured incident response to understand the root cause and determine the best course of action, which might include a fix and redeployment rather than outright abandonment of the update. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to VDI updates. This involves a structured process of assessment, planning, testing, deployment, and monitoring. Before any significant change, a thorough impact analysis should be conducted. Pilot testing with a representative user group is crucial for validating functionality, performance, and compatibility. A clear rollback plan should be in place. Continuous monitoring post-deployment is essential to detect and address any emergent issues promptly. This systematic approach ensures that technological advancements are implemented responsibly, safeguarding both user productivity and organizational security. Question 12. Benchmark analysis indicate that Horizon 7 deployment is experiencing inconsistent performance and high resource utilization during peak hours. The IT team is considering several strategies to address these issues. Which of the following approaches best aligns with VMware's recommended best practices for optimizing Horizon 7 environments to improve both user experience and resource efficiency? Option A. Focus solely on reducing the number of concurrent user sessions by increasing the required logon time and implementing stricter access controls to limit the overall demand on the infrastructure. Option B. Mandate that all users log off their virtual desktops at the end of each workday and implement aggressive power management policies across all desktop pools to ensure maximum resource availability during off-peak hours. Option C. Decommission older Horizon 7 components and replace them with a different, unproven virtualization technology to reduce licensing costs without a thorough performance and compatibility assessment. Option D. Implement a comprehensive strategy that leverages Horizon 7. 7. Instant clone technology for rapid desktop provisioning, app volumes for dynamic application delivery, and intelligent policy-based session management to dynamically adjust resources based on user activity and workload demands. Correct answer is D. Implement a comprehensive strategy that leverages Horizon 7. 7. Instant clone technology for rapid desktop provisioning, app volumes for dynamic application delivery, and intelligent policy-based session management to dynamically adjust resources based on user activity and workload demands. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in virtual desktop infrastructure, VDI management, balancing user experience with resource utilization and security. The professional must evaluate different approaches to optimize the Horizon 7 environment, considering the potential impact on performance, cost, and compliance. The challenge lies in selecting the most effective strategy that aligns with organizational goals and the specific capabilities of Horizon 7. While adhering to best practices for VDI deployment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on leveraging Horizon 7's built-in capabilities for intelligent resource management and user session optimization. This involves understanding and configuring features like instant clones for rapid provisioning, app volumes for application delivery, and dynamic policies for session management. By aligning these features with the specific workload requirements and user profiles, administrators can achieve a highly responsive and efficient VDI environment. This approach is considered best professional practice because it maximizes the value of the invested technology, minimizes operational overhead, and ensures a positive user experience, all while maintaining a secure and compliant posture. It directly addresses the core principles of VDI optimization as outlined in VMware's best practices for Horizon 7. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach might involve a blanket application of a single optimization technique without considering the diverse needs of the user base or the underlying infrastructure. For example, universally applying aggressive power management settings to all desktops could lead to increased logon times and a degraded user experience for those requiring immediate access. This fails to meet the implicit requirement of providing a functional and efficient desktop for all users, potentially violating service-level agreements or user satisfaction metrics. Another incorrect approach could be to solely focus on cost reduction by over-provisioning resources or implementing overly restrictive policies without a thorough understanding of the performance implications. This can lead to a situation where the VDI environment is technically compliant but functionally unusable, resulting in user frustration and a negative impact on productivity. This approach neglects the primary purpose of VDI, which is to deliver a seamless and productive user experience. A third incorrect approach might be to ignore the security implications of certain optimization techniques. For instance, disabling certain security features to improve performance could expose the environment to vulnerabilities, leading to potential data breaches or compliance violations. This directly contravenes the fundamental security principles expected in any IT deployment and would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach VDI optimization by first conducting a thorough assessment of user needs, application requirements, and existing infrastructure. This assessment should inform the selection and configuration of Horizon 7 features. A phased implementation approach, coupled with continuous monitoring and performance tuning, is crucial. Decision-making should be guided by a framework that prioritizes user experience, operational efficiency, security, and cost-effectiveness, ensuring that all decisions are justifiable and aligned with organizational objectives and VMware's recommended best practices for Horizon 7. Question 13. Quality control measures reveal a critical security vulnerability in the deployed VMware Horizon Agent version across all production virtual desktops. A patch is available, but its successful integration with existing applications and user profiles is unconfirmed. What is the most professional and secure approach to remediate this vulnerability? Option A. Roll back all Horizon Agent versions to the last known stable configuration, deferring the patch until further analysis is complete. Option B. Deploy the patch immediately to all production virtual desktops to address the security vulnerability as quickly as possible. Option C. Apply the patch to a randomly selected subset of production virtual desktops to gauge its impact before a wider deployment. Option D. Implement the patch in a dedicated test environment, followed by a pilot deployment to a small group of representative users before a full production rollout. The correct answer is B. Deploy the patch immediately to all production virtual desktops to address the security vulnerability as quickly as possible. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in virtual desktop infrastructure, VDI, environments, ensuring consistent and secure user access while adhering to evolving security policies. The challenge lies in balancing the need for rapid deployment of updates and patches with the potential for disruption to end users and the risk of introducing new vulnerabilities. The professional must navigate the technical complexities of Horizon 7. 7. Understand the implications of different update strategies and consider the impact on user experience and overall system stability. The pressure to resolve the identified security gaps quickly adds a layer of urgency that can lead to hasty decisions if not managed carefully. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased, controlled rollout of the Horizon agent updates. This aligns with best practices for change management and risk mitigation in enterprise IT. By first testing the updates in a non-production environment, administrators can validate functionality, identify potential conflicts with existing applications or configurations, and assess performance impact without affecting live users. Subsequently, deploying to a pilot group of users allows for real-world validation and feedback before a full production rollout. This methodical process minimizes the risk of widespread service disruption, ensures that security vulnerabilities are addressed effectively, and maintains user productivity. This approach is professionally sound as it prioritizes stability and security through a structured, risk-averse methodology, which is implicitly expected in professional IT operations. Incorrect approach is analysis. Immediately deploying the updates to all production desktops without prior testing is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the principle of least privilege and due diligence in change management. It introduces an unacceptable level of risk, potentially leading to widespread system instability, data corruption, or even security breaches if the updates themselves contain unforeseen issues. This demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility to ensure the integrity and security of the production environment. Rolling back all Horizon agent versions to a previous stable state without addressing the identified security vulnerabilities is also professionally unsound. While it might temporarily restore stability, it leaves the environment exposed to known risks. This failure to address critical security patches is a direct violation of the implicit professional obligation to maintain a secure computing environment and protect organizational data. It prioritizes immediate perceived stability over long-term security posture. Implementing the updates only on a subset of production desktops without a clear pilot or phased approach is also problematic. While it attempts to limit the scope of potential issues, it lacks the rigor of a controlled pilot. This approach can lead to an inconsistent user experience and makes troubleshooting more complex, as different users will be running different agent versions. It also doesn't provide the comprehensive validation that a dedicated pilot group offers, increasing the risk of unforeseen problems during a later, broader rollout. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing this situation should employ a structured change management framework. This involves 1. Risk assessment, understanding the severity of the security vulnerabilities and the potential impact of the updates. 2. Planning, developing a detailed plan for testing, pilot deployment, and full rollout, including rollback procedures. 3. Execution, implementing the plan in a controlled manner, starting with non-production environments. 4. Validation, thoroughly testing in each phase and gathering feedback. 5. Communication, keeping stakeholders informed throughout the process. This systematic approach ensures that technical decisions are made with a clear understanding of risks, impacts, and best practices, leading to successful and secure implementations. Question 14. The audit findings indicate that the current process for granting administrative access to Horizon 7 virtual desktops for the IT support team is ad hoc and lacks sufficient oversight, potentially exposing the environment to unauthorized changes or data breaches. The support team requires elevated privileges to perform troubleshooting and maintenance tasks. What is the most appropriate method to address this audit finding while maintaining operational efficiency and security? Option A. Provide all IT support staff with permanent, full administrative credentials for all Horizon 7 virtual desktops and pools. Option B. Disable all administrative access for the IT support team and require them to escalate all requests to a separate, highly restricted administrative team. Option C. Implement a solution that allows for temporary, role-based administrative access to specific virtual desktops or pools, with automated revocation of privileges after a defined period, and ensure all such access is logged. Option D. Manually grant administrative access to individual virtual desktops on a case-by-case basis only when a specific support ticket is opened, without any automated revocation mechanism. The correct answer is C. Implement a solution that allows for temporary, role-based administrative access to specific virtual desktops or pools, with automated revocation of privileges after a defined period, and ensure all such access is logged. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential security vulnerability in the Horizon 7 environment, specifically concerning the management of privileged access to virtual desktops. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency with robust security controls, a common tension in IT administration. The need to grant access for support personnel while preventing unauthorized use necessitates a nuanced approach to access management. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the audit finding by implementing a granular, time-bound access control mechanism. This aligns with the principle of least privilege, a fundamental security tenet. By using Horizon's built-in features to grant temporary administrative access, the organization minimizes the window of opportunity for misuse and ensures that access is logged and auditable. This proactive security measure is crucial for maintaining compliance with internal security policies and potentially external regulatory requirements that mandate strong access controls and audit trails for sensitive systems. An incorrect approach that involves providing permanent administrative credentials to support staff is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This violates the principle of least privilege, creating an unnecessary and persistent security risk. If an account with permanent administrative rights were compromised, the potential damage would be far greater. Furthermore, the lack of granular control and time limitations makes auditing and accountability extremely difficult, which could lead to noncompliance with data protection regulations or industry-specific security standards that require strict access logging and management. Another incorrect approach, such as disabling all administrative access for support staff, is also professionally unacceptable. While it addresses the security risk of overprivileged accounts, it cripples the ability of the support team to perform essential maintenance, troubleshooting, and incident response. This operational inefficiency can lead to prolonged downtime, degraded user experience, and ultimately, business impact. From a professional standpoint, the goal is to enable business operations securely, not to halt them. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment. First, understand the specific audit finding and its implications. Second, identify the business requirements that necessitate access, e.g., support maintenance. Third, explore the available technical controls within the Horizon environment that can meet both security and operational needs. Fourth, prioritize solutions that adhere to the principle of least privilege, offer granular control, and provide robust auditing capabilities. Finally, document the chosen approach, its justification, and any residual risks. Question 15. The risk matrix shows a moderate risk of performance degradation in the new VMware Horizon 7 environment due to a mixed workload of critical business applications and general user data. The IT team is planning the initial deployment. Which of the following approaches best mitigates this identified risk? Option A. Deploy all user types to the new environment simultaneously to expedite the rollout and gather immediate feedback. Option B. Prioritize the deployment of users with less critical workloads first, deferring the migration of users with critical business applications until performance is fully optimized. Option C. Delay the deployment of the Horizon 7 environment until all potential performance issues can be completely eliminated through extensive pre-deployment simulations. Option D. Implement a phased deployment, starting with a pilot group of users representing a mix of critical and general workloads, followed by iterative expansion based on performance monitoring and testing. The correct answer is A. Deploy all user types to the new environment simultaneously to expedite the rollout and gather immediate feedback. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the implementation of a new Horizon 7 environment requires careful consideration of resource allocation and potential performance bottlenecks, especially when dealing with a mixed workload of critical business applications and less sensitive user data. The risk matrix highlights a potential for performance degradation, which, if not managed effectively, could impact user productivity and potentially violate service-level agreements, SLAs. If those are in place, though the exam syllabus does not explicitly detail specific regulatory frameworks beyond general best practices for IT service delivery, the core of the challenge lies in balancing cost-effectiveness with ensuring a stable and performant user experience. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased rollout and thorough testing based on the identified risks. By segmenting the deployment and conducting performance testing with representative workloads, the IT team can proactively identify and mitigate potential issues before they affect a larger user base. This aligns with the principle of responsible IT deployment, ensuring that new technologies are introduced in a controlled manner that minimizes disruption and maximizes the likelihood of success. It demonstrates due diligence in managing potential risks and ensuring the stability of the virtual desktop infrastructure. An incorrect approach that involves immediately deploying all user types to the new environment without adequate testing or segmentation would be professionally unacceptable. This would fail to address the risks identified in the matrix and could lead to widespread performance issues, impacting productivity and potentially leading to user dissatisfaction. It bypasses essential risk mitigation steps and demonstrates a lack of foresight in managing the complexity of the deployment. Another incorrect approach, such as delaying the deployment indefinitely due to the identified risks without any mitigation plan, is also professionally unsound. While caution is warranted, inaction does not resolve the underlying need for the new environment and represents a failure to manage risks proactively. It suggests an inability to make informed decisions and implement solutions. A third incorrect approach, focusing solely on the cheapest available hardware without considering the performance implications highlighted by the risk matrix, would be a failure of professional judgment. This prioritizes cost over functionality and stability, directly contradicting the findings of the risk assessment and potentially leading to a subpar user experience and increased support costs down the line. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the identified risks, a clear assessment of the potential impact of those risks, and the development of a phased implementation plan that includes robust testing and validation at each stage. Decision-making should be guided by a commitment to delivering a stable and performant service, balancing technical requirements with business needs and resource constraints. Question 16. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of unauthorized access to sensitive user data within the VMware Horizon 7 environment due to a potential vulnerability in the connection broker's authentication process. What is the most appropriate risk mitigation strategy? Option A. Conduct mandatory annual security awareness training for all users on phishing and social engineering tactics. Option B. Implement multi-factor authentication for all Horizon 7 connections and enforce strong password policies. Option C. Initiate a project to completely re-architect the entire Horizon 7 infrastructure to a newer, more secure platform. Option D. Accept the risk as the likelihood is only moderate and the potential impact is currently assessed as low. The correct answer is B. Implement multi-factor authentication for all Horizon 7 connections and enforce strong password policies. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT risk management, balancing the need for robust security with the practicalities of user experience and operational efficiency. The professional challenge lies in accurately assessing the impact and likelihood of a threat within the context of a specific VMware Horizon 7 deployment, ensuring that the chosen mitigation strategy is both effective and proportionate, and that it aligns with the organization's overall risk appetite and any applicable regulatory requirements. The exam's focus on VMware Professional Horizon 7 implies a need to understand how specific technical configurations and operational practices influence risk. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified risk by implementing a layered security control that is technically feasible within the Horizon 7 environment and directly mitigates the threat of unauthorized access to sensitive data. This approach prioritizes the confidentiality and integrity of user data, which are fundamental security principles. It also demonstrates a proactive stance in risk management, moving beyond mere identification to active mitigation. This aligns with general IT security best practices and the principles of due diligence expected in professional IT roles. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on user training without implementing technical controls fails to acknowledge that human error or malicious intent can bypass even the most comprehensive training. This approach is professionally unacceptable because it relies too heavily on a single, often fallible, control mechanism and does not adequately address the technical vulnerabilities inherent in the system. It could be seen as a failure to implement appropriate technical safeguards, potentially violating organizational policies or industry standards for data protection. Another incorrect approach that suggests ignoring the risk due to low perceived impact is professionally unacceptable because it demonstrates a failure to conduct a thorough risk assessment. Even a seemingly low-impact risk can escalate if left unaddressed, and a responsible IT professional must consider the potential for cumulative impact or unforeseen consequences. This approach neglects the principle of defense in depth and can lead to a false sense of security, leaving the organization vulnerable. A third incorrect approach that proposes a complete system overhaul without a clear justification based on the risk assessment is also professionally unacceptable. Such an approach is often cost-prohibitive and disruptive, and it fails to demonstrate a targeted and efficient use of resources. It suggests a lack of understanding of risk-based decision-making, where mitigation efforts should be proportionate to the identified risk. This can lead to wasted resources and a failure to address more pressing security concerns. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment methodology. This includes identifying assets, threats, vulnerabilities, and potential impacts. The likelihood and impact of each identified risk should then be evaluated, often using a risk matrix. Based on this assessment, appropriate mitigation strategies should be developed, considering technical controls, administrative policies, and user training. The chosen strategy should be cost-effective, technically feasible, and aligned with the organization's risk tolerance. Regular review and reassessment of risks and controls are also crucial components of ongoing risk management. Question 17. The monitoring system demonstrates a consistent pattern of a specific user accessing a disproportionately high number of virtual desktops within a short time frame, exceeding typical usage parameters for their role. This activity, while not explicitly violating any defined security policy, raises concerns about potential unauthorized access or resource abuse. Option A. Forward the raw monitoring logs to the user's direct manager for them to address with the employee. Option B. Immediately revoke the user's access to all virtual desktops and report them to HR for potential policy violation. Option C. Archive the monitoring logs without further action, assuming the activity is within acceptable, albeit unusual, operational parameters. Option D. Initiate a detailed, documented investigation into the user's activity, correlating the access patterns with their job responsibilities and any recent system changes, and escalate only if a clear policy violation or security risk is identified. Correct answer is D. Initiate a detailed, documented investigation into the user's activity, correlating the access patterns with their job responsibilities and any recent system changes, and escalate only if a clear policy violation or security risk is identified. Explanation. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of unusual activity originating from a specific user account within the VMware Horizon 7 environment. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves balancing the need for security and compliance with user privacy and the potential for false positives. The administrator must investigate without infringing on user rights or causing undue disruption. The correct approach involves a systematic, documented investigation that prioritizes data integrity and adherence to established organizational policies and relevant VMware best practices for Horizon 7 security. This includes isolating the observed activity, correlating it with known legitimate user actions, and escalating only if a clear security or policy violation is identified. This approach upholds professional integrity by ensuring actions are data-driven, transparent, and aligned with security objectives, minimizing the risk of unauthorized access or data breaches. It also respects user privacy by avoiding broad, unsubstantiated accusations. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disable the user account or report the user to management without a thorough investigation. This fails to consider that the observed activity might be legitimate, albeit unusual, and could be due to a misconfiguration or a new, authorized workflow. Such an action would violate principles of fairness and due process, potentially damaging the user's reputation and trust within the organization. It also bypasses established incident response protocols, which are crucial for maintaining a secure and compliant environment. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the alert entirely, assuming it is a system anomaly. This neglects the primary responsibility of a system administrator to maintain the security and integrity of the virtual desktop infrastructure. Ignoring potential security threats, even if they appear minor, can lead to significant vulnerabilities and breaches, violating the duty of care owed to the organization and its data. A third incorrect approach would be to share the raw monitoring data with other users or departments without proper authorization or anonymization. This constitutes a breach of confidentiality and privacy, potentially exposing sensitive user information and violating data protection guidelines. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a structured approach. First, understand the observed behavior. Second, consult relevant policies and documentation. Third, gather corroborating evidence. Fourth, escalate appropriately based on findings. And fifth, document all actions taken. This methodical process ensures that investigations are conducted ethically, legally, and effectively. Question 18. Assessment of a VMware administrator's ethical obligations when discovering a critical, unpatched vulnerability in a client's Horizon 7 environment during a routine audit, which, if exploited, could lead to a widespread data breach and significant financial loss for the client. The administrator has a contractual obligation of confidentiality regarding client information. Option A. Anonymously report the vulnerability to an industry security forum to alert others to the potential risk. Option B. Ignore the vulnerability to strictly adhere to the client confidentiality agreement, assuming the client will eventually discover it. Option C. Escalate the findings through the consulting firm's internal incident response and management channels, seeking guidance on how to proceed with the client. Option D. Directly contact the client's IT security team to inform them of the vulnerability, bypassing the consulting firm's management. The correct answer is C. Escalate the findings through the consulting firm's internal incident response and management channels, seeking guidance on how to proceed with the client. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain client confidentiality versus the potential need to disclose information to prevent harm. The VMware administrator is privy to sensitive information about a client's infrastructure that, if exploited, could lead to significant data breaches and financial losses. The dilemma lies in balancing the duty of confidentiality with the broader ethical responsibility to act in a way that prevents foreseeable harm, especially when the client's actions, or inactions, create a clear and present danger. This requires careful judgment to determine the threshold for disclosure and the appropriate channels for doing so without violating professional trust or legal obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves escalating the concern through appropriate internal channels within the consulting firm, following established incident response and reporting procedures. This upholds professional best practices by 1. Prioritizing client confidentiality. The initial steps are to address the issue internally, avoiding direct, unauthorized disclosure to external parties. 2. Seeking expert guidance. Escalating to management or a designated security officer allows for a collective assessment of the risk and the determination of the most appropriate course of action, aligning with the firm's policies and legal counsel. 3. Ensuring proper documentation. This process facilitates thorough documentation of the observed vulnerabilities and the steps taken, which is crucial for accountability and future reference. 4. Adhering to professional codes of conduct. Many professional IT certifications and ethical guidelines emphasize the importance of reporting security concerns through established channels to protect both clients and the broader digital ecosystem. While respecting confidentiality, until a clear and justifiable need for disclosure arises. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that involves directly contacting the client's IT security team without prior consultation with the consulting firm's management or legal counsel is professionally unacceptable. This bypasses established protocols, potentially violates contractual agreements regarding communication channels, and could be perceived as an overreach or an attempt to circumvent the consulting firm's responsibilities. It also risks miscommunication or misinterpretation of the findings, leading to unnecessary panic or an inappropriate response from the client. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the vulnerability due to a strict interpretation of client confidentiality. This fails to acknowledge the ethical imperative to prevent harm when a significant risk is identified. Professional responsibility extends beyond mere data protection to include proactive measures to safeguard against foreseeable breaches, especially when the client's current practices create such a risk. This inaction could lead to severe consequences for the client and reputational damage for the consultant and their firm. Finally, an approach that involves anonymously reporting the vulnerability to a third party or a public forum is also professionally unacceptable. This action breaches client confidentiality without authorization, bypasses any opportunity for the client to rectify the issue through their trusted partners, and could expose the consulting firm to legal repercussions and a loss of trust from all its clients. It demonstrates a lack of professional integrity and a failure to follow established reporting and escalation procedures. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must develop a decision-making framework that prioritizes a risk-based approach to security concerns. This framework should include 1. Identification and assessment. Clearly identify the vulnerability and assess its potential impact and likelihood of exploitation. 2. Internal consultation. Always consult with supervisors, legal counsel, or designated security officers within the organization to determine the appropriate course of action. 3. Policy adherence. Strictly follow the organization's incident response, data handling, and client communication policies. 4. Proportionality. Ensure that any action taken is proportionate to the identified risk and respects client confidentiality as much as possible. 5. Documentation. Maintain detailed records of all observations, communications, and actions taken. Question 19. Comparative studies suggest that performance degradation in a VMware Horizon 7 environment can stem from various sources. When faced with user complaints about slow application responsiveness and login times, what is the most professionally sound and effective approach to diagnose and resolve the issue? Option A. Rely solely on the anecdotal experience of senior administrators to identify the likely cause and implement their recommended solutions without further data validation. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive performance analysis using Horizon's built-in monitoring tools, vCenter performance metrics, and potentially third-party analysis software to pinpoint specific resource bottlenecks or configuration issues before implementing targeted optimizations. Option C. Immediately initiate a broad range of system-wide configuration changes across all Horizon components and virtual desktops, assuming a general performance issue affecting the entire environment. Option D. Prioritize a significant hardware upgrade for the underlying infrastructure, such as increasing server CPU or RAM, without first thoroughly investigating software or configuration-related performance drains. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive performance analysis using Horizon's built-in monitoring tools, vCenter performance metrics, and potentially third-party analysis software to pinpoint specific resource bottlenecks or configuration issues before implementing targeted optimizations. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT environments where performance bottlenecks can impact user productivity and operational efficiency. The professional must balance the need for immediate problem resolution with the long-term implications of their chosen approach, considering resource allocation, potential side effects, and adherence to established best practices for process optimization within a VMware Horizon 7 environment. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of performance degradation and implementing a solution that is both effective and sustainable, without introducing new issues or violating operational guidelines. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation to identify the specific processes or components causing the performance degradation. This aligns with best practices for process optimization, which emphasize understanding the current state before implementing changes. In a VMware Horizon 7 environment, this would typically involve leveraging Horizon's built-in monitoring tools, vCenter performance metrics, and potentially third-party performance analysis software. By analyzing metrics such as CPU utilization, memory usage, disk I/O, and network latency at the VM, application, and user levels, administrators can pinpoint the exact cause. Implementing targeted optimizations, such as adjusting VM resource allocations, optimizing application configurations, or fine-tuning Horizon agent settings, based on this data, represents the most effective and professional method. This data-driven approach minimizes the risk of unintended consequences and ensures that resources are applied where they will have the greatest positive impact, adhering to the principle of efficient resource management. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing broad, unverified changes across the entire Horizon environment without a clear understanding of the root cause is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach is akin to shotgun surgery and can lead to unintended consequences, such as destabilizing other parts of the environment, consuming unnecessary resources, or even exacerbating the original performance issue. It violates the principle of due diligence and responsible system administration. Furthermore, making widespread changes without proper testing or rollback plans increases the risk of extended downtime or service disruption, which can have financial and reputational implications for the organization. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on hardware upgrades without investigating software or configuration issues. While hardware can be a bottleneck, it is often not the primary cause of performance problems in a virtualized environment. This approach is inefficient and costly, as it may involve significant capital expenditure without addressing the underlying software or configuration inefficiencies. It demonstrates a lack of analytical rigor and a failure to apply the most appropriate and cost-effective solutions first. Finally, relying on anecdotal evidence or the experience of a single administrator without validating it with objective data is professionally unsound. While experience is valuable, it should be augmented by data. Making critical decisions based on assumptions or hearsay can lead to incorrect diagnoses and ineffective solutions, potentially causing more harm than good. This approach lacks the necessary rigor and accountability expected of a professional administrator. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured problem-solving methodology. This begins with clearly defining the problem and its impact. Next, gather relevant data using appropriate monitoring and diagnostic tools. Analyze this data to identify the root cause. Based on the analysis, develop a hypothesis for a solution and plan its implementation, including testing and rollback procedures. Execute the solution and monitor its effectiveness. Finally, document the process and outcomes for future reference and continuous improvement. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, effective, and minimize risk, upholding professional standards of care and responsibility. Question 20. Market research demonstrates that a financial services firm's VMware Horizon 7 environment is experiencing intermittent performance degradation during peak trading hours, impacting user productivity and potentially transaction processing times. The IT team needs to optimize the VDI infrastructure to improve responsiveness and stability. Which of the following approaches best balances performance enhancement with the firm's stringent regulatory obligations for data security and auditability? Option A. Conduct a thorough analysis of current resource utilization, identify specific performance bottlenecks through monitoring tools, and then implement targeted optimization strategies, e.g., profile management adjustments, storage I/O optimization, network traffic shaping, in a phased approach, validating each change through controlled pilot groups and rigorous testing of audit trails and security settings. Option B. Focus solely on reducing the number of VDI desktops to cut costs, assuming that a smaller footprint will inherently improve performance, and deferring any detailed performance tuning or security validation until after the reduction is complete. Option C. Upgrade all hardware components, servers, storage, network to the highest specifications available without first identifying the specific components causing performance issues or assessing the impact on existing software configurations and licensing. Option D. Implement a comprehensive suite of third-party performance tuning tools across all VDI desktops and connection servers simultaneously, without prior pilot testing or detailed impact analysis on logging and security configurations. Correct answer is D. Implement a comprehensive suite of third-party performance tuning tools across all VDI desktops and connection servers simultaneously, without prior pilot testing or detailed impact analysis on logging and security configurations. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge in optimizing VMware Horizon 7 deployment for a financial services firm, where regulatory compliance and operational efficiency are paramount. The firm's reliance on sensitive financial data necessitates a robust and secure VDI environment, making process optimization a critical undertaking. Careful judgment is required to balance performance gains with adherence to strict data handling and audit trail requirements inherent in financial regulations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, data-driven optimization strategy that directly addresses identified bottlenecks without introducing undue risk. This aligns with the principles of responsible IT management and the need for demonstrable due diligence in regulated industries. By focusing on specific, measurable improvements and validating them through pilot testing, the firm ensures that changes are effective and do not negatively impact security or compliance posture. This methodical approach allows for continuous monitoring and adaptation, crucial for maintaining an optimized and compliant VDI environment. An incorrect approach that involves a broad, sweeping implementation of unproven optimization techniques without adequate testing or validation would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an approach risks introducing instability, security vulnerabilities, or performance degradation that could compromise sensitive financial data. This would violate principles of data integrity and confidentiality, potentially leading to breaches of financial regulations requiring secure data handling and robust audit trails. Furthermore, a lack of proper testing could result in non-compliance with service-level agreements, SLAs, and operational disruption, impacting the firm's ability to conduct business. Another incorrect approach, such as prioritizing cost reduction over performance and security, would also be professionally unacceptable. While cost efficiency is important, it cannot come at the expense of regulatory compliance or the integrity of the VDI environment. This could lead to inadequate security controls, insufficient logging, or performance issues that hinder user productivity and potentially expose the firm to financial and reputational damage. This would be a failure to uphold the duty of care expected in managing critical IT infrastructure, especially in a regulated sector. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify and quantify current performance bottlenecks and their business impact. 2. Research and evaluate potential optimization strategies, considering their impact on security, compliance, and user experience. 3. Prioritize optimization efforts based on potential ROI, risk, and alignment with business objectives. 4. Develop a detailed implementation plan including pilot testing and rollback procedures. 5. Execute the plan in a phased manner with continuous monitoring and validation at each stage. 6. Document all changes, testing results, and performance metrics for audit and future reference. 7. Regularly review and refine the optimization strategy based on ongoing performance data and evolving business needs.